Hello Raid Class, this is That Yi Guy here with another Path of Exile video. This time for the 3.2 Bestiary League. And it's been a while, so I hope everyone's doing well. So yeah, Berserker got nerfed, but at the same time Chieftain and Juggernaut and other Ascendancies are looking stronger than ever. For this one, let's talk about Juggernaut Righteous Fire. I'll start with a skill tree, which didn't change too much from the last time. In fact, none of our nodes has changed at all. So it's still the most optimal setup. And I'll cover the leveling paths, how you should path your tree, and after that I'll move on to gear choices, Pantheon, and etc. I'll also try to provide as much detail as possible down below in the description, such as multiple skill trees based on your level, so that wherever you're closest to, you always have something to reference to, like something for level 60, 90, etc, etc. So hopefully you guys find this helpful. And yeah, alright, let's get started with the skill tree. So I always take this node right here because it's really efficient. Eventually we'll come back and respec out of it. So I'm going to take all these HP nodes, and these are really efficient. So that's the path I always go in the very beginning. It's going to give us nice damage, nice survivability, and we can start going through content really fast. So I'm making a detour to the left because we eventually want to path over here, and also we want to pick up these cluster right here. So instead of going directly to a duelist cluster, I'm taking this roundabout path and pick up these and go up. Grab all these HP nodes. Art of a Gladiator is really nice. It's got attack speed, accuracy rating, ignore movement penalty from armor. So our chest plates always give 10% movement speed penalty. So this will make us run faster effectively, and it gives stacks. This is an amazing node. So down here, we're going to go take out Golem's Blood for sure. That's one of the best nodes in the game. Skip the jewelry sockets for now until we get something good. Eventually we'll come back and pick up Vigor. But for now, let's take a look around. So based on what weapon you're going to be using, if you know what weapon you're going to be using for Sunder or Reeve that you're going to use to level up, you can go ahead and put your skill points in. So you definitely want to put in enough to get like these big nodes. If you're dual wielding, pick up the Dervish. If you Destroyer, if you're using two-handed weapon, sword, and axe. And so I highly encourage taking them early because it's going to help smooth out your leveling experience quite a lot. And it's definitely worth the respec points later on. So we can go here. Barbarism, yeah, this is fantastic. Resist all, it's going to be super helpful. Max fire resist, and yep. So at this point, we can begin pathing upward. Sanctity, yeah. Take the elemental nodes, go left and down. Now these are really good nodes as well. And eventually we're going to take an endurance chart. So we definitely want to reach this point so we can use it. Now, from this point on, we're going to slowly try and make our way to the elemental equilibrium and elemental overload. So the reason we're taking this path is because Shaper node regens life. These two nodes also regen life. And we can pick up this socket, which is always good, and then on the way we can pass to life regen node. These are really small nodes, but they're still good. And also we want to have access to this big wheel of HP here. I usually take Constitution right away and put enough points to Path of a Warrior. Just eventually I can take out the Path of a Warrior, but for now it's great. I can go up, and grab these nodes. Yep, and that puts us at roughly around 50-ish. So with Sunder, we're going to be doing plenty of damage. And at this point, you probably feel like you needed some extra damage. So say I'm using Sunder with two-handed weapon, I will go ahead and pick up martial experience in this cluster here. I will go down and definitely pick up Destroyer here. And if I'm using Axe, I'll pick up Axe. So that's going to give us plenty of damage to clear the content that we are doing at this point in the game. So eventually we just want to look up regen and this will highlight all the regen clusters, giving us a pretty good idea of which ones we want. Chances are we want combat stamina, so take it. Here, regen over armor. So, yep, and yeah, arsonist and nodes like that. So this will get you to the end game, and from this point on, you can just reference the other skill trees I'm also going to link, and you know exactly what to put points on and things like that. So that's pretty much for the normal skill tree. Let's talk about Ascendancy. So I definitely thought really hard about Chieftain, but in the end, Juggernaut is just too appealing not to take. It gives us so much mitigation that it's going to be great. And Juggernaut also makes you really tanky. And having the max amount of endurance charges will make Uber Lab a joke. So especially early on, I really prefer this because being able to run through Uber Lab and being able to tank bosses much more safely, that just appeal to me so much more. So when it comes to the Ascendancy orders, I will actually go Unbreakable first. So it gives 2% life regen per second, 5% reduced damage taken, keeping in mind that once we get Righteous Fire, 5% reduced damage taken is going to help with the burn we deal to ourselves. And so is regen. It's going to help offset it. Armor received from body armor double, that's good, but not so ultra helpful right now. And then the fourth thing, just nice bonus. So yeah, armor endurance charge, duration, unflinching. So yeah, we have a chance to get endurance charge when you hit, and then you gain endurance charge every second if you've been hit recently. So that's 4 seconds. So every time you get hit, you're guaranteed to get 4 endurance charges. And there's a 25% chance that if you gain endurance charges, you instead gain up to your maximum number of endurance charges. So that's almost guaranteed that you're going to get all the endurance charges all the time. So you're going to have max, and it gives you +1 max. So that's also really nice. So I go here for my first lab, and then Unflinching for my second lab. And for the third lab, I will go Unrelenting. So 1% additional physical damage reduction per endurance charge, 8% reduce elemental damage taken while max endurance charge. So 8% reduce elemental damage taken while at max, that's also going to reduce self-burn damage from Righteous Fire. This is kind of what pushed me over to like choosing Juggernaut for Righteous Fire. And then Chaos Resist is actually quite helpful, especially since we're running 4, 5, 6 endurance charges. That's actually a pretty significant amount of free Chaos Resist. Eventually, with this build, you're going to have a very easy time running Uber Lab. And then for the Uber Lab, you can do something like Undeniable, which is actually quite nice. The accuracy helps you charge, and because we're trying to proc Elemental Overload, it's going to help a lot with the accuracy, with the crit. So with the Unstoppable, we're also going to use that quite a bit because we have Kaom's Roots. So at this point, you gotta decide, do you want to use Kaom's Roots? For sure. If you do, you can definitely just go the other path, Undeniable. But if you go Unstoppable, you can also use some unique boots. You can use a rare boot to make gearing much easier because you're gonna, cannot be stunned is super helpful. And you can get, say, a boot with like 120 life if you're lucky, and then movement speed, resist, all these awesome stats. Or you can use a unique boot with the ability you want. There's a unique boot that gives you +1 max endurance charge, for example, and it will be really nice for this build. So this is the last one is going to be up to preference. Personally, I would actually go Undeniable, just because I like the consistency with the crits and with accuracy always hitting in order to proc your Fortify. So there's less chance of your Fortify not happening, like for the first couple seconds, and then constantly leading to your dying. But either one works. I'm going to just go Undeniable for now, but in the beginning of the league, when you don't think you can get Kaom's Roots very accessibly, maybe Unstoppable is the one you want to go with. But I have a couple of notes about the skill tree that I want to talk about. Because of the way our tree is laid out, we can have access to 3 different endurance charges. One here, one here, and another one down here. Those are really good. So once you have the Juggernaut mechanics up and running, for example, once you have Unrelenting, I would say switch priority a little bit, pick up those endurance charges in the tree. And also another thing is that there's two really important nodes, keystone nodes, that I want to talk about and explain the mechanic so that people will understand. So Elemental Overload is great. This does apply to our Righteous Fire damage. So 40% more elemental damage if you crit in the last 8 seconds. And you don't get crit multipliers and things like that. So we want to take that because obviously we get more elemental damage. It scales our Righteous Fire. And we don't care about crit in any other situation. So yeah. So shield charge with increased crit will give us higher chance of triggering this, which means more damage. So we're going to try to make sure we can trigger our shield charge crit as much as possible if we can. Another thing is something I actually gotten a couple of questions, and some people send me their builds after watching my last video, asking why their build is having issues with DPS. So Elemental Equilibrium is one of the most important nodes in here. So it increases our damage tremendously. So enemies you hit with elemental damage temporarily get plus 25% resist to those elements. So if you hit with fire, they're going to be more resistant to fire. Hit with ice, with lightning, they're going to be more resistant to those, etc., etc. And they become weaker to the other elements. So this is great if we hit them with anything other than fire. But if we hit them with something like fire, they're going to be more resistant to fire, which is what Righteous Fire does. So the reason why this is great is because there are two skills in the game that, well, I'm sure there are more, but there's two that doesn't quite hit that's relevant to us. Righteous Fire does damage in the form of a burn, but it does not hit. So Righteous Fire will not override this effect, and it will not trigger this effect. So it will get a full benefit of this and none of the drawback as long as we have other sources of lightning or ice damage. We need to make sure there's no fire damage on it whatsoever. So the safest way is to look at the tooltip. So in this tooltip for shield charge, if there's no fire damage, then we're good. So for the weapon, we want Doriani's Catalyst as an endgame option because it gives you a lot of increased elemental damage. The implicit gives you 32%, and then down at the very bottom, you could potentially get 100% increased elemental damage. And combined with the fact that this has pretty good attack speed and increased crit chance, which helps proc Elemental Overload, it makes us the best weapon, in my opinion. And the next thing you definitely want is Brightbeak if you don't have the Catalyst. Brightbeak, the whole appeal of it is if you look at attack per second, it is a really fast weapon. So it will help you get around really fast with shield charge, and that's the main point of it. So for the sockets, I personally put increased duration support, Vaal Haste, and Enduring Cry in it. So that's going to be pretty useful. Enduring Cry, even without the Berserker bonus effect, is going to be a good skill to have. Vaal Haste is, I just like it. Increased attack speed, always useful for charging around the map. Increased duration is supporting the Vaal Haste and Enduring Cry, so it's going to be great. Next thing is the shield. Rise of the Phoenix is something I recommend you getting first because it remains the best option for Righteous Fire, giving you 5 maximum fire resist, which means that you take a lot less degen and your natural regen will overtake that degen by even larger amount. It's a great item. Alternatively, just use a tanky shield until you can get Rise of the Phoenix. But absolutely get it first. At the very first day of a league, might be pretty expensive, but after that, it will get much cheaper very fast because it is not a top tier unique, which means the drop rate for it is actually pretty decent. So the next thing is the amulet. It's a great amulet, but if you can't get Soft's Heart, which most people won't be able to, I personally didn't get it for a long time. Soft's what you want is just a marble amulet. So marble base has an implicit to get you percentage life regen. Use one of those, roll it as best you can, and then just, yeah, it's going to be a great option. Just have a marble amulet. And for the ring, you want one of them as an unset ring. That's how I personally prefer to do it. It gives +2 or +3 or +1 level as a socketed gem, but you want either +2 or +3. So if you have a +2 level socketed gem, you want to put a level 21 Purity of Fire in there, because that effectively adds up to level 23. And if you have a +3 level socketed gem, you can put a level 20 Purity of Fire in there. That adds up to 23. Now 23 is a magic number because that is the number at which Purity of Fire gives 5 additional maximum fire resist as opposed to 4. It add like 20, 21, 22. So that's the whole point of it. And the other one is, of course, I have the Opal Ring. It gives a lot of elemental damage, fire damage, which is amazing as an in-game option. But because we're going Juggernaut, and not Berserker anymore, I just haven't respect because this is before the patch is out. So since we're going Juggernaut, then endurance charges is going to be a great source of regen by us having Kaom's Way. So if you look at it, it gives you regen based on number of endurance charges you have. That's going to be fantastic because Juggernaut will always have maximum amount of endurance charges. So that's going to be a great alternative. Yeah. So for belt, you want a really well-rolled belt with all the stats you want. And yeah, Abyss Socket is always good. Ever since it came out, it became the best belt possible. So for chest, you want either Kaom's Heart or, until you can get it, what I used for the first couple of days of last league was a chest with 152 maximum life. It's ridiculously high chest. And then I just ended up re-rolling it and rolling, enchanting a low resist on it, and then used that for a long time until I eventually saved up and got Kaom's Heart. And so for the helm and gloves, that's really important because helm and glove is where you want to put your Righteous Fire setup. So the Righteous Fire setup is Righteous Fire, Elemental Focus, Burning Damage, and increased area effect support or concentrated effect support. So what you want is that for helm, you want to use Essence of Delirium. What it does is that when you use that to craft a helm, it's guaranteed to roll a special modifier that's socketed gems deal 30% more elemental damage. So that's really helpful. So you want that on your helmet, and you socket in the Righteous Fire setup. So your 4-link Righteous Fire will have 30% increase, more elemental damage. So that's great. You can get the same effect by having a glove that's crafted with Essence of Horror. So Essence of Horror gives socketed gems 30% more damage over time, which Righteous Fire is also damage over time. So it will have the same effect. So you want to have one of those, and that should be one of your priorities because that is a significant damage boost to your 4-link Righteous Fire. So yeah, so among all your gear pieces, what you want to do is, for me, if you look at the ring, it has added lightning damage to attacks. I talked about it briefly in Elemental Equilibrium earlier. But because it has added lightning and I have no other source of elemental damage, if I look at the tooltip for shield charge, it's got physical, it's got lightning damage. It's perfect. I mean, you're allowed to have cold damage as well, but you never want to have fire damage in your shield charge because that way you can trigger the equilibrium and get that nice damage boost that I mentioned earlier. Yeah. That's pretty much it for the gear. For the jewels, the new jewel is absolutely amazing. Watcher's Eye. There's hundreds of things you can roll on the Watcher's Eye. The one in particular that we are looking for this build is increased life recovery rate while affected by vitality. That is completely busted. It is overpowered because that multiplies every source of life recovery. Yes, that includes our massive regen pool. That includes any source we have of healing. If somehow we get leech, life flasks, and things like that, it is just great all around. So I will probably be fighting you guys for this jewel because I'm not lucky enough to get one as a drop. So I'm going to be trying to buy one. But yes, I highly recommend it. If you see a cheap one, definitely snatch it up. And yeah, and feel good about it. For other jewels, you want max life. Percentage max life is definitely the most important thing you want. It scales your survivability, it scales your damage, and it's just the best thing you can roll on your jewel. But once you have a jewel with max life, you can look for fire damage, percent burning damage. Those roll really high, which is great. If you can't get those, you can also look for other increased attacks that also work with Righteous Fire. Damage over time works for Righteous Fire. Increased damage period works for Righteous Fire. So that's good. Yeah. And attack speed helps with shield charge. And that's pretty much it. Quickly, the flasks. Witchfire Brew is good because it applies Despair Curse, which increases our damage over time, which Righteous Fire is. It also gives you smoke cloud to blind your opponent, which is really good. It makes them miss. Ruby Flask is good. The less fire resist you have, the more I try to keep around my belt. So in the beginning of the server, because my beginning of league, when my gear was terrible, my fire resist wasn't that great. So I actually kept multiple Ruby Flask curing, and I just alternated them as I went through maps really fast. So it worked really well. There's also Basalt Flask. You can also substitute this for a flask that creates Consecrated Ground, because Juggernaut doesn't need that much physical damage reduction. You already have so much. Eternal Flask of Staunching is really good. It's a life flask, which is what we want, and then it removes bleed. This particular one does. So among all your flasks, you want anti-bleed, you want anti-freeze, and then you will, most importantly, want anti-shock. Those are the three you want. But if you can get anti-poison, that's also good. Rumi's Concussion is really nice to have when you are so geared, you don't care that much about shock. But for the longest time, you want to prioritize getting anti-shock flask. But Rumi's Flask is Concoction is good because it gives you more ways to mitigate damage by giving you more block. So that's really helpful. And that's pretty much it for the gear. Oh my god. So yeah, the video is very long, but believe it or not, I've been talking to this microphone for hours. So, because it took more than one take. As long as this dragged on, I tried to deliver all the information as concisely and clearly as possible. Like clearly enough so that anyone who's seeing the build for the first time can understand it. So yeah, if you stuck around and you listened to this part, I appreciate your patience. And as usual, I'm going to be really busy. So for this league, I only have a couple of days to play. But I just love this game so much. I'm going to have a lot of fun. So even after I'm not playing, if you have any questions about this build, please just leave a comment on YouTube. I will try to reply. If you saw my other videos, I always do my best to reply as soon as I can. With my work schedule, sometimes I don't get to it within a day, but I always reply. And yeah, and if you have a question that's asked here, if I answer it, someone else might get the answer as well. So that's going to be great. So yeah. Oh, catching my breath. But yes, thank you so much for watching. And yeah, I hope you guys, wish you guys luck in Bestiary League. Hope you catch all the rarest Pokemons. Yes, that's right. I said Pokemon. And yeah, and get all the amazing craft recipes, all the amazing RNGs. And thank you so much for watching. This is that Yi Guy. Peace out.